Tuesday. It's time we discuss health matters that are affecting you and I. My name is Samuel Njoroge. Hopeful that your Tuesday is turning out to be just fine. A bit chilly, I know. We had thought that we had gotten over that kind of weather. But here we are. Let's embrace it as it is and make the most out of this day. Now, the hashtag is Good Morning Kenya on Twitter. 22162 is our SMS line. Begin with the initials GMK. And the subject that should form the discussion that will go therein, as well as on this very set this morning, is all about HIV and AIDS. And I know we've dealt with so many dimensions. Coincidentally, for the last 2-3 weeks, we've been looking at HIV and AIDS. And this week, it's no different because we'd like to focus on yet another angle. UNAIDS did set some goals for this country, did set some goals which we ended up embracing as a nation. And by 2020, there should be this rule about 90, 90, 90. Now, what is this all about? It only means that the year 2020 should be at a level whereby we've achieved 90% status awareness, 90% administration of antiretroviral therapy, and 90% of undetectable viral load. That's all we shall be discussing this morning, as well as any other issue that may touch on HIV and AIDS, and that is relevant to the discussion that is just about to begin right here on The Only Way to Start Your Day. Participate, ask your questions, give us your comments, and let us know exactly how well you're flowing with us as we get into this discussion. I will not be doing this alone. I've got a very capable a very capable gentleman who will be taking us through the insight that we need to embrace this very topic. His name is Professor Matilu Mwao, and he's the gentleman on your screen right now. He's a chief researcher with KEMRI. However, it will not be justice for me if I'm not able to let him tell us just a little bit about yourself. So, karibu sana to the show.
Oh, thank you.
How are you doing this morning?
I'm good, Just a bit cold, but yeah.
Yeah, sure, it's a bit cold, but we hope for all the best, right? We hope for all the best. So kindly just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Of course, my name is Matilu Mwao. I'm a medical basic trainer. I'm a specialist in infectious diseases. I work for KEMRI, Kenya Medical Research Institute. And I'm a researcher. That's what I do from morning to evening. And HIV is one of my pet topics. I've been in the HIV business for a long time, from before 2000, so more than 18 years. More than 18 years. Yes.
World of experience. And we're glad you're able to share with us that experience this morning. Kenya's progress in meeting the 90-90-90 goal. It's only 2 years away.
Yes.
How far out are we as a nation?
Amazing. So maybe I should start from behind, the last 90. Those people who are on treatment should have viral suppression. 90% of those should be virally suppressed. So we are doing well there. There's 2 years to go.
Yes.
We probably have around 84% of those on treatment being suppressed. So we have a gap of around 6%.
6%.
But you do realize that we didn't start measuring this too long ago. So we think that we've made a lot of progress there, and it's possible that we'll achieve that 90 by 2020.
Right.
Now the middle 90 is the 90 around those whose status is known. 90% should be on treatment. Okay? We're also doing very well there. The national program is very strong in this regard in terms of giving antiretroviral therapy. The last time I checked, we were almost there. We were like maybe 81% or more than 80%. So there's a small gap that needs to be bridged the next 2 years. And the national program has done very well there. Now, my worry is the first 90. All people who have got HIV, 90% of them should know their status. Now, the last time I checked, I saw that it was somewhere around 60-something percent, 70% at most, around there.
67.
A gap of 20% in 2 years is a bit of a challenge. And I know that the national program has been doing, has been very robust in the way it approaches testing, creating awareness and testing. But there are innovations that are now required. These are 2 years. And 20% is not a small thing. And I was speaking with somebody not too long ago in another forum, and they told me about an innovation that they had that I found very impressive. And maybe I should mention it so that you see what I'm talking about.
Go ahead.
In the Christmas holidays in last year, there was this partying and so on. And there was this guy who works for an NGO or FBO. And he went to Nyanza, and they were doing something there in Nyanza. And they said, okay, we are going to support a party here, and we are going to offer free beer, all right? But for you to get the free beer, this is what you must do. You must come with a bangle or something on your wrist.
Yeah.
How are you going to get that bangle? You must get tested first. And people did get tested a lot because they wanted free beer. And some of them were actually identified as having HIV, and they were now referred to treatment and care. And I thought that was very innovative.
Yeah, sure.
There's another innovation that we need to think about. You know very well that people don't like to get tested. In fact, men specifically really hate getting tested, at least the ones I know.
Yes.
And if you look at the national data, you'll see that there are more women who are accessing HIV services than men, more women who are tested, more women who are aware of their status. And one of the issues around that is, of course, stigma. But there's also the issue of convenience and the issue of confidentiality and so on. One of those approaches that can really help is self-testing. And you know Kenya has embraced self-testing.
Yes.
So where you can go to a shop or a pharmacy, get a strip or get a self-test, you go home, you hide in a bedroom, in the toilet, you open it up, test yourself, know your status. And those strips have got instructions about what to do when you find that you are negative, or what to do and where to go when you find that you are positive. A long time ago, we worried about people finding that they are positive and then harming themselves. In Kemri, where I work, we evaluated some of these self-tests, and we asked people questions, and we observed them as they tested themselves. And we found that, in fact, the idea of harming themselves was more or less far-fetched. It was not what we thought it would be.
It would be.
Yep.
And the whole concept or the whole idea behind 90-90-90, could you just share with us a bit of background info, a bit of inspiration behind this concept? You
know, HIV has been with us for a long time, from early 80s. In Kenya, in fact, if I remember correctly, the first person with HIV was around 1986.
Yes.
Right? That's many years, like 30 or something. And a lot has been done about HIV. And generally speaking, in many parts of the world, the prevalence of HIV is reducing, right? So, but that's not just what we want. We want more. We would like to eradicate HIV. And in other areas in science, we'd like to develop a vaccine, and we'd like to cure HIV. Yes. We'd like to do that. Now, in terms of making HIV not such a big public health problem, the world community sat and discussed, where do we need to be at with regard to testing or awareness, with regard to treatment, and with regard to viral load suppression? Where do we need to be at? And it was agreed, if we want HIV not to become a big public health issue, if we want to remove it from that level, then we need to have some goals. And the figures 90, 90, 90 were adopted not too long ago, if you remember.
Yes.
To be achieved by 2020, so that we know it is now possible to say new transmission or new infections of HIV are going to be very few if we are at that level. We know, for instance, when somebody is taking antiretroviral therapy and the viral load is suppressed completely to undetectable levels, the ability to transmit to other people who are uninfected is reduced dramatically.
Yes.
So therefore, new infections are reduced. We know that. We know that HIV causes illness and death if it's not well managed. So we know that if the viral load is suppressed very well, then the person will not get unwell, and they'll not die, and they'll be able to just do their normal thing. So these are things that the community, the world community, has been looking at. These have been embraced in the UNAIDS goals of 90-90-90. Yeah.
In context of the global community, you realize, and I'm sure you know, that we have this International AIDS Conference that's coming up in Amsterdam, July, end of this month. In light of that, when you compare Kenya in the context of the rest of the world, how is our progress herein? Yes, I know we've said a little bit of 9% here, 6% there, but in some instances we have quite over a 30% to bridge. That is the first 90.
Yeah.
What's our audit in comparison to the rest of the world?
Thank you for this question. First of all, you do realize the one thing about Kenya. Kenya has a high HIV burden. It's one of those countries where HIV is a big deal, a very big deal. Now, that's the bad part. The good part is the Kenya national program is very well developed and has performed very well. Especially for the second and the third 90s, we are ahead of many other countries in this world. The first 90, we need to up our game, so to speak. Yeah. So when we go to Amsterdam, the last week of July, you can be sure the data presented there will show that Kenya is up there. Is one of those countries likely to achieve the 90, 99 before others. So we are not doing so badly. But there are some places where work is required. One, identifying those difficult to find people with regard to whether they're infected or not infected. That gap needs to be identified. Then making those approaches that have been known to work, making them a standard. For instance, self-testing, pre-exposure prophylaxis, yani when people are going to, they know that they might be exposed to HIV, taking prevention before that exposure. Those are things that Kenya needs to scale up in a big way. Yeah.
And you said it is important for us to identify the gaps.
Yes.
Not restricted to only the Ministry of Health, but in a broad sense, each and every stakeholder within the health sector that is involved with HIV and AIDS. What do they need to do? What part do they need to play to ensure that they fill in the gaps once identified?
Maybe I'll again start from behind because I'm at the bottom of the chain.
Context.
I work in the Kenya Medical Research Institute.
Yes.
And our specialty is research for health, right? And we have the technology required to identify those people who are taking medication and the medication is not working because the viruses have become resistant. There is a small number of those people. It's not so small that we think, but it's important enough for us to be involved in that business. But you recall I've said 84% of the people in Kenya right now who are taking medication have viral load suppression. They are doing fine.
They're doing fine.
There is a number, 16%, that does not appear to be doing so well. Now that number, some of them are not doing well because they didn't take the medications the way they are supposed to. They did not adhere. But there is a proportion of that adhered, but the medications just didn't work for many reasons, including viral resistance. You know, HIV mutates, and the more it mutates, sometimes the drugs don't work because they can no longer now target the appropriate areas. So for drug resistance, as people in Cambria in the business of identifying those people who have drug resistance so that we can advise the doctor, this drug won't work, this one won't work, but maybe you should try this, this, and that. That one will help increase the number from 84% where drugs are working to more than 90%. Now, I spoke about adherence.
Yes.
There NASCOP, the National AIDS and STDs Control Program, and the related organizations, NGOs and FBOs, they know what to do about adherence, how to identify a client who didn't adhere. Maybe they didn't turn up to pick their pills, how to find them, and how to cancel them, and how to improve adherence. And we know that adherence counseling works. Again, that number 84 goes to beyond 90, right? So that's at that level. But let's now come to the middle level in terms of antiretroviral therapy.
Yes.
We know that there are many drugs, and there are many people on drugs, and many of them are doing very well. Sometimes there are some drugs, because you use them for so long and so on, that are not working as well as they used to at the beginning. It's the same thing for many other aspects of life, right? You can't do the same thing all the time.
Over and over again.
So now there are new drugs that are coming up, and some are very potent. And in fact, I can tell you without fear of contradiction, there's one drug called dolutegravir, which is now in the Kenyan market and actually is in the public health space. And there are people taking that drug, and for the moment, it works beautifully well. So it's time to think about how to put more people on that kind of drug so that you suppress the virus, okay? Even that one, no matter what you hear, with the time, we'll start getting issues of resistance. But right now, it's working beautifully well. Now, let's come to the first 90. People need to know their status.
Yes.
Now, that is a job for everybody. Out there, if you do not know your status, you have a problem. You have a serious problem, not just yourself, but also the people around you that you're interacting with. Of course, we keep saying people also need to change their behavior so that they don't, infect others. But we do know that even when a person has HIV, they don't necessarily need to infect other people, and retroviral therapy works.
Yep.
We know that, again, to become aware, the national program needs to go out there with rapid results initiatives. This is 2 years. So you can't just sit and do the thing that you used to and hope that you are going to achieve different results. That gap needs to be closed by, a proactive behavior.
Yes.
Rapid results initiatives, putting self-testing out there, going into kamukunjis, into barazas and so on, and doing, the thing that they do best, right? And of course, for us, in the lab again, there are some times when we need to test people, not at the reference level, but at the mashinani level. I'll tell you what. One of the groups that is of real interest to us is infants, born of mothers who are HIV positive. We call those infants HIV exposed because the mother had HIV when they were in the uterus.
Yes.
Okay? Being HIV exposed doesn't mean they're infected. A few of them are, but many are not. Those ones who are not infected, we don't want them to become infected. So there are approaches around that, okay? Breast milk exclusively, or exclusive formula and so on. And now, those ones who are infected, we don't want them to fall sick, we don't want them to die, we don't want their viral load to go up. For us to do that, first, we need to identify them very early. In fact, these days, we even have innovative approaches around at-birth testing. When the child is born, it is tested there and then.
There and then.
All right? If that is not the case, our normal practice is to test them somewhere around 6 weeks. Because at 6 weeks, they go to the hospital because they need vaccination, they need to be seen and so on. That's the standard. All right? But in any case, we would like to test these children before they are 6 months of age.
Yeah.
And we've been very successful in Kenya. But there's a problem around infant diagnosis. From a reference lab like Cambridge, where we have a number of labs doing this, we test. The coverage of testing is very high. However, after testing, they just fall through the cracks, many of them. So maybe they end up dying because we know very well without treatment, within 2 years, 50% of those infants will be dead.
And where exactly does the gap lie when it comes to infant diagnosis? Yeah, where is the problem?
There are two issues. First, there are mothers who are not accessing the diagnosis because they gave birth at home, the health facility is so far, there's that problem. And that problem we can solve by making point-of-care testing available. And I'll tell you later what point-of-care testing is.
Yeah.
Now, there's another gap. Those guys we've tested, what happens is, let me paint the picture for you. So they come to a health facility someplace 800 kilometers from Nairobi. They go to that health facility. Their blood is taken. If it's an infant, it's from the hill. And it's put on a filter paper, so it's dry, safe, packaged, like just a letter. Then it is kept there for a bit of time. Maybe they're waiting for 2 or 3 other children, so the package becomes substantial.
Yeah.
Then they give to G4S or another courier company, all right? So then it comes to Nairobi. Between the time the blood was taken for that infant and the time it comes to a lab, maybe a week or 10 days or 20 days or 6 months.
The lapse of
6 months
time.
bad. It has elapsed.
The lapse of time.
Now it comes to a lab. Test within 2 days, we have a result. It takes another day, we post the result. Now, what happens? The mother of that infant comes back to the facility and say, do you have my result? No, I don't have. Maybe you wait another week, comes back, no, I don't have. She never comes back again. So what do? One of the innovations around that has been many mothers have mobile phones. The computer where the results are, when they are ready, sends a message to the mother. Please go to the facility, your result is now ready, and your child can be seen by the doctor. The same computer sends a SMS to the doctor. The results of infant is ready. Please log in online using these credentials and get the results. And then it also emails the results by email and all that kind of stuff, okay? Yeah. Now, that prevents a loss to follow-up. But that's not enough. Some mothers still slipping through the cracks. Point-of-care testing has showed us how this kind of thing can be resolved. Point-of-care testing is like this. Where the patient is where the test is done. That obviously tells you the equipment that you are using for that are smaller, probably less expensive, and they deliver results the same day, sometimes within 2-3 hours. So when the mother comes with the infant, the infant is tested. She's told, okay, hang around or just go to the canteen or something, come back in the afternoon or after 2 hours, and the result is ready. In fact, a very nice study has been done by a group where they can show that the results are available, not within 15 days or 30 days, the way sometimes it happens, or 10 days for us, within the same day. And almost every infant, 100% of those infants who have gone through this process have all been put on treatment and care, the way it's supposed to be. So the difficulties around point of care testing are, it is newish, not very new for other countries, but for us it's newish technology. So we are just learning it. In fact, I evaluated some of these technologies in Cambridge and found some were very good, recommended them, and 1 or 2 are in use in this country right now. But they're not very many, they're not everywhere. And yet we know that if they are put everywhere, they could improve that lost follow-up.
You know, when you look at the chronology of how this nation has fought HIV and AIDS, and even globally so, there has been that deliberate attempt to reduce the proximity in terms of time and affiliation and make it as personal as possible. That's why we have self-testing, that's why we have
the point of care.
The point of care. But then again, as personal as it gets, does it work for or against the cause? Owing to the fact that, you know, 10% is what you know. 90% is how you choose to respond and do with that information. Yes.
Let me first come to the point where you are now making the decisions yourself. So we have VCT, where you sit with somebody, you talk with somebody, you test it, you understand what's happening, you find the result, things happen for you. And now it comes to a point where you even get rid of that person and you're testing yourself in your own kitchen, quietly. The beauty is that those self-tests, for instance, have got instructions on what to do. And we used to think people will not follow these instructions, or people will even hurt themselves. It is not the case. It is not what we always thought. And how do we know that? We actually brought in the self-tests to Kenya and evaluated them, not just in terms of their performance characteristics, as in accuracy, but also in terms of usability, how people respond to them, their perception, what they'll do next, and so on. And we actually well now educated around what our prejudices, in fact these are our prejudices were. People have, in fact when we were talking to people, they were saying, you know, HIV has been here for so long, so it's not as bad as it used to be. This is how people say, you can take treatment, so don't worry. If I find I'm positive, because if you find you're positive, what are you going to do? So if I find I'm positive, there is treatment, so I know what to do, I know where to go. So that personalized level of care is another kind of personalized that I would like to bring into the play. You know, the public health space gives people drugs the same way, right? So if you are positive, you are initiated on a certain regimen. The second person who is positive is exactly on that regimen. Now that is working for 84% of the people. 80,
okay.
Or more, but not 100%. There's a small group of people who will require to have what we call tailor-made treatment, in the sense that we have to identify what virus they are carrying and say, this person is newly infected, but please don't start them on these drugs, please start them on this. Because now we are wiser, now we are cleverer, now we have the equipment, we have the know-how to tailor-make. That solves a lot of trouble in terms of people falling sick and dying, taking the wrong thing. And also it solves a lot of trouble with regard to spending money on drugs that won't work for some people. But that's a small cohort of people.
Just a small one. Let's take a look at a few facts here and there, data to be specific, interpret them and appreciate what they mean, both in terms of where we're at and where we are headed. And as of 2015, approximately 1.5 million, including an estimated 98,000 children under the age of 15 were living with HIV infection in Kenya. We dealt with that a bit. But HIV prevalence, I beg your pardon, has remained stable at almost 6% for the last 5 years. Why have we stagnated at 6% over 5 years? What could have informed this?
So that tells you that not many new people, not as many new people are getting infected as it used to be
As
before,
it used to be,
right?
yes.
It tells you that antiretroviral therapy is working because the way we see it from a scientific perspective, antiretroviral therapy has been the most powerful tool in preventing new HIV infections, not just managing those who are infected, as in they don't fall sick, they don't die, new infections. So 6% tells you now we are stable there. But 6% is not good enough. If something just goes wrong kidogo, we are up there again. You recall there were days when we had more than 10%, 11%, and now we are at 6% for the last 5 years. In fact, 5.4% to be precise, around now, 5.9, 5.4. So the thing for us is to sustain that antiretroviral therapy until we get to a point and manage now drug resistance until we get to a point when there are no new infections. You also realize that dying from HIV has reduced dramatically. All right, that's a good thing. It's a good thing, but also keeps that figure there. Yeah. So, but it's a good thing because when you don't die, you're not sick, you're productive, and this is what Kenya needs. Yep.
Right. And at the end of the day, being aware is important. It's all about the first 90, getting out there, knowing your status. But beyond knowing your status, there's the aspect of responsibility. And having that information, using it to empower the society, to empower yourself, to live a good quality life. Is that happening?
It's a difficult question. Difficult question because there's something in humans which is called cognitive dissonance. Like now, I'll just give an example that's not HIV related. It is said, if you drink alcohol and don't drive, you know very well that when you are drunk, you are not in good control of your vehicle. But do you know how many people do that? There is a disconnect between what they know and what they do. Even for us in HIV, it's the same. You know very well the next person could have HIV, or if you have HIV, you know you could give it to the next person. But you still go ahead and have like unprotected sex. Without being aware of your status, not aware of the other person's status. This is a very difficult human problem to solve. However, we don't know that behavior change has had an impact in HIV. Behavior change. I'll tell you some interesting fact out of the data that you may come across. Did you know that where commercial sex workers are concerned, so many of them use condoms? In fact, I was laughing this morning thinking that there are more commercial sex workers who use condoms than just the ordinary people. You see what I'm saying? So it means that they have internalized that information, they are aware of the situation, and they know what to do. And I would wish that this is the same for the population, that everybody is aware of what HIV is and knows what to do and does it. To kill that cognitive dissonance. That is where the trouble is.
That's where the trouble is. And it's interesting because right now we also have an issue with adolescent infections. In fact, that's pretty much the focus this year around. When you look at how the address or how the efforts have been focused on various groups over the years, what's the trajectory? Where are we headed?
First of all, it is clear in my mind that adolescents face a significant society pressures. The first one is that adolescents think they are healthy and they think they are supermen. I'm it. I am Superman.
This is happening.
I'm strong.
Everything.
And in fact, things can affect me, plus even my parents can't tell me a thing. You know, adolescents have that problem, which is adolescence. The second issue they have is that they are under pressure from, especially the female adolescents, they are under pressure from older or richer men, you see, who have, there's a power gradient between the men and the adolescents in one direction. So they are abused, they are misused by older men, and they get infected. And an older man can have more than one adolescent or two or three. I didn't catch them doing it, but this is well known.
It's information out there.
And then for the adolescent males, the boys, quite many of them are under peer pressure, and they're also under pressure of the changing culture. You know, we also come under a lot of influence from images that we see about how other people's lifestyles are out there in the developed world, which are actually false or posers. Those are posers. Those are false images of people.
Yes.
If you go to some of those people, they're just normal guys sitting in the house doing their normal thing. When they go out there in the streets is when they look different. But adolescents don't understand this. Okay? So they are at risk. Therefore, there must be focused programs around adolescents. So I know we worry about, you know, giving children condoms or give education.
Yeah.
You know what the fact of the matter is? Adolescents die of HIV. So you have a choice to let them die or do something about it. Simple.
Nice way of looking at it. Especially that last line is a punchline. Either watch them die
Or do something
we do
about it.
something about it. Still on data and appreciation of the same. I came across this statement that Kenya is among 4 countries with the highest HIV disease burden in Africa.
Yep.
4th. Who are the other 3?
No, Kenya is amongst 4 that have roughly the same, like Uganda. and so on, yeah. But there are some countries that are worse. So there are, I think, 4 countries that are worse than Kenya. So Kenya is amongst Uganda, I think Mozambique and one other. But there are others who are worse, like Swaziland down there, South Africa.
South Africa
that's
too.
worse. So Kenya is probably number 5 or 6 around there. Okay? So the prevalence in Southern Africa, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Swaziland, Botswana is high. Is high enough for you to go to the street and start thinking, like when you're in Southern Africa, of course you think and say, so are you telling me 1/3 of these guys, a quarter of them are HIV infected, you see? Now in Kenya, the percentage is roughly around 5.9%, okay? That's probably the problem some people like Uganda are facing, all right?
Yeah.
It's 5.9% of a population of 50 million. It is not a small number. It's a huge number that has public health importance. I can tell you, when people are planning to spend money on health, HIV is up there. It's that serious.
Is that serious?
And not just for us, even for countries around us, Uganda.
Yes. And when it comes to infant infections, you realize that without treatment of either 50 or over 50% of these children die. Mortality rate being around 2 to 3 months, right? But then again, do we have studies that have been conducted that can show success stories? You know, babies that were born with the infection and they've grown into adults and they're able to live good quality lives.
First of all, let me tell you, if you don't give infants who are infected medication, within 2 years, half of them will be dead. And by 5 years, almost all of them will be dead. Simple as that.
That is without.
Without.
Yes.
But that's not an experiment we really want to do. There are more than 65% of people, infants who have HIV, are on treatment, 65% on treatment. And I saw data from the National AIDS and STDs Control Program showing the number of infants whose deaths have been averted because of this approach, diagnosis and treatment, and they are in their tens of thousands who are living healthy lives out there. They could have died. There is data like that from the national, here, not in other countries, here in Kenya. Yep.
And going back to 1990, there is a need for collaboration, there is a need for partnership, there is a need for stakeholder engagement to ensure that whatever gaps are there are able to be filled, and by 2020 we are reporting success, 100% success. When you look at collaboration and partnerships, where should our efforts be capitalized?
Thank you very much. I think I'll start with the big one, resources. Okay? First, to make resources available and not to duplicate, because there are so many players out there, not to duplicate, to use our resources efficiently. That's number one. Number two, we know the things that work and we know the things that don't work. I think when partners sit in groups on the table, like in technical working groups and so on, it needs to be very clear in everybody's mind, these are things that work and these are things that don't work. And we need to really focus on the things that work. For instance, we need to really focus on things like pre-exposure prophylaxis, like antiretroviral therapy, like testing and treatment, to bringing people into care and treatment. We need to focus on those sorts of things. The amount of money available for HIV-related work in Kenya in any 1 year is a budget, I suspect, of a small country. All right? So we know that resources generally are not a challenge in terms of amount. They are a challenge in terms of how we use them. Stakeholders and partners need to sit together and agree. This is what works, this is what doesn't work, this is how we should use our resources.
So at the end of the day, it's resource allocation.
Yeah.
And innovations, because technology is key.
Yes.
And in the course of this discussion, we've been mentioning a few.
Yeah.
But then again, in terms of emerging trends, technology, and innovation,
Yeah.
What should be our end game? Where are we at as far as that is concerned?
So I've already spoken about diagnostics, new treatments, and so on. But I'd like to go back to 2000. In 2000, I was a PhD student, and my PhD work was around design and testing of vaccines for HIV. I think you might recall that from a long time ago.
Yes.
And we did work, preclinical work, before we got to human trials. We did some preclinical work, and this work has continued in many, many labs in the world trying to find a vaccine that will work for HIV. Can you imagine the day that a vaccine will be put on the table and you are told this thing is 95% effective against infection? That will be the day. Now, in this conference that is coming up in Amsterdam, work on vaccines development is going to be presented. And I'm told that some of it has been very promising work. In 2000, we were saying, within 3 years, we are going to have this vaccine. And because we are working with the best people, in fact, we used to think, this guy is so smart, he'll get a Nobel Prize.
Yeah.
3 years down the line, there was no vaccine. 10 years, there was no vaccine. Now it's like 20. So I'm thinking in my mind, and I'm hoping that there will be a vaccine available in my lifetime. All right? The things that don't work around vaccines development, they have been found and they have been discarded. And people are very focused on the things that appear to be working. All right? So in our lifetime, hopefully there will be a vaccine. For me, that's the one thing that if it was put on the table, HIV will become history. Done. Meanwhile, as we're struggling around vaccines, you realize that these developers are developing drugs that are more and more potent for HIV. Any drugs that bring down the virus to undetectable levels like that, okay? So that being the case, if everybody is on treatment, those ones who are infected and those ones who are at risk of getting infection, then we can know there will be no new infections. If there are no new infections, we'll get to a point where HIV will just become, really? It's almost getting eradicated the way you talk about polio. Maybe you find once in a while polio, but generally there is no polio. You see the point? Same as HIV. And I think in our lifetime we'll get to there.
And I know also the presence of a vaccine has really aided polio. Has really aided polio. We do hope that, as you say, in our lifetime, we shall get to see the vaccine. But then, in light of everything we've discussed this morning, from mother to child infections, diagnosis and treatment, 90, we also need to appreciate that there has been some challenges in the fight against HIV. There has been some challenges in attaining some of these goals, 90 being one of them. What are the modern day challenges when it comes to combating of HIV and AIDS, and how are we responding to them?
You know what I think from a public health perspective?
Yes.
It's just that there are people out there, the main thing for me, there are people out there who have HIV and they don't know it. Surely, how can you be helped? How can society move forward when there are people being left behind? For me, this is the single greatest thing. Because drugs, you're almost getting them right. Diagnostics, let me tell you, in KEMRI, by the way, KEMRI is Kenya Medical Research Institute. Is the premier research institution in this region, probably outside South Africa.
Yes.
If you look at the amount of investment in KEMRI we've put around HIV diagnostics, if you go to a lab, you'll not believe it. You'll think you're in Europe. Okay? So we've got that right. We are quite capable of taking HIV from you, putting it on the table and saying, this is the genetic makeup of this virus. We think this drug won't work. This one will work.
This one will work.
For us, that's just routine. That's normal. Things that you used to hear people take samples, I don't know, to South Africa or to Europe. No. We can do it here and we do it here. So we've got that right. The thing that we haven't got right is, why are there people out there with HIV and they don't know it? There's treatment, they don't know, they're not getting the treatment. For me, that is the biggest challenge. There's another challenge that almost became a challenge but didn't quite mature into a challenge. Yeah, there was a point where we got into a state of panic, because you do realize that the resources around HIV treatment and care, diagnostics and so on, they come from donors. And there was a point when there was discomfort amongst the donors that their source of funding would be throttled. But it doesn't seem to have matured into quite the challenge that it would become. There has been a bit of shifting of resources and so on and so forth, but we have not collapsed. It's a challenge, but not the monster we thought it was going to become, because you imagine a situation where you had no money to buy drugs for HIV, and then people miss their medication. Do you realize what kind of public health disaster that would be? But it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Very nice.
Yeah.
It didn't go that far.
It didn't go that far.
It didn't go that far. Do you think this war has gone grassroots enough? Have we gotten down there, or it's still high level discussions up here, but the ripple effect is not trickling down?
Kenya is divided into counties, sub-counties, location, sub-location,
and every
village, homestead, etc.
Yeah.
So let me paint the picture for you. At the county level, perfect. County, perfect. Location, 70-30. Sub-location, 50-50. But inside homesteads, I mean, do you know that when we go out to do research in the field, we talk with guys, with people, and people tell you the most weird things about HIV, mpaka you realize that in fact this war has not gotten to this guy's homestead
at all.
Like, I remember there's a place we went not too long ago, and then I asked somebody, okay, so tell me, how is HIV transmitted? So he looked at me, then he told me, you know the way you walk along the road, then the way people walk randomly using their hands, they cut a piece of grass, they pluck off a grass and start chewing it. It's very dangerous. Don't try it, because you'll catch HIV. You understand? So what I'm trying to tell you is that the amount of information required at the homestead level, at the village level, is a lot. Is a lot.
Is a lot.
Is a lot.
A lot of, as you said, effort and resource allocation needs to go to grassroots and empowerment, grassroots education, in as far as HIV and AIDS is concerned. However, we do appreciate that the journey has been long since the first reported case back in 86. Yeah, 86. 86 right here in Kenya. It's been over slightly over 30 years, 32 to be precise, and the journey keeps going. The results keep trickling in. Right now we're looking at 90. The last 290, we are doing well. Our percentages are slightly above 80%. But for the first 90, and it's all about status awareness. There's a lot that needs to be done there.
True.
We have innovations, we've been discussing them on this set, self-testing, point of care, and all this. But remember, it goes beyond the knowledge. It's what you do with the knowledge that becomes the power, because information, we say, is power. So what you're able to do with that information is what gives you the power to not only empower yourself, but also help the society. And together we are able to lead good quality lives. All right? It's not a death sentence. We've had that tagline before. It's not a death sentence, but it requires some very unique and high levels of awareness as well as responsibility. How prepared are you? How prepared am I when it comes to achievement of these goals and moving together as a nation? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Professor Makau, it has been a pleasure.
Thank you.
I look forward to engaging you more and more and more on this very topic.
Thank you.
You will be headed to Amsterdam later this month.
Yes, I'm going to Amsterdam.
You will be going to Amsterdam. All the best.
Thank you.
Represent Team Kenya well. And I'm sure that
in Kenya we do good work.
Yeah, we do good work. Absolutely, we do good work. And by the time you're coming back, I'm sure the insight will be deeper and better.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. Good morning, Kenya, this Tuesday. Thank you for keeping us company since 6 a.m. all the way till now. From the news to Women at the Forefront to Health Tuesday, and a special appreciation to Amos Ogweri, the gentleman behind People Like Us and Code 254. Enjoy your Tuesday. It's possible to enjoy it. It's chilly and all, but it's still possible to enjoy it. Make the most out of this day, and God bless you all abundantly. See you tomorrow, same place, same time, for Good Morning Kenya. My name is Samuel Njoroge.